This video is about approval workflows. Basically, we want to create a workflow that requires some human interaction and can collect information from the users, and that information can be approve, reject, or even a custom vote. We want to collect that information and process it and maybe decide on the next steps of our workflow based on the values that the users submit. As a workflow development platform, Power Automate provides a few actions that it comes down basically to two different approaches as of available actions. There is one action available that we call it start and wait for approval, that basically creates an approval and sends that approval request to one or multiple users and waits for them to approve. So it is just one action and that's it. And the other option is a combination of two actions. One of them is create an approval that actually creates an approval and sends it to the user waiting for the approval or rejection or any other vote. And the second one waits for that approval. So basically, in between, from the moment that you send the approval request to the approver till you actually sit there and put the workflow on hold to get the response, you can do quite a few things. At the end, they both do the same thing, but they are used for different scenarios. I would say one single workflow, which is going to be start and wait for approval, will probably take care of more than 90% of your workflow scenarios. While the other one, we just save it for the most advanced scenarios that really we cannot do it with one single action. So, this video is going to be long. I divided it to two different videos. The first video that you are watching it now, I'm going to go through the basic scenarios so we have everybody on the same page. The second video that comes later is the difference between man and boy. Basically, that's the complex scenarios that even I myself, as a workflow developer over so many years with different technologies, have not come to this scenario very often. But regardless, we will cover it in the second video. So if you're familiar with the basics of this workflow, you can skip this video and wait for the second one. As soon as it comes out, I will put the link right there. And we cover everything that we need to do on the typical scenarios. And then we cover the complex scenarios, that is basically the advanced options. Now, let's start the work and see the basics of the workflow approval inside Power Automate. To start with these videos, I would like to go through different approval scenarios that we typically deal with. And each one of them requires a different approach when it comes to using the proper actions in Power Automate. The first scenario, we have one approval request for one or multiple approvers. So in that case, someone is hired. The question is that, shall we give him a company phone? So there is one approval request, one item to be specifically approved or rejected. And that rejection can be just one vote from one person, or it can be a collective vote from multiple people that they all should approve till this person is given a phone. It depends on the corporate policy. The second one is that we have fixed number of approval requests. Imagine the same person is hired and there is one request for him to get a phone, the other request for him or her to get, for example, a software license. They are separate approval requests, and each one of them can be approved or rejected independently. So in this case, we have fixed number of approval requests, but multiple people may or may not approve it. In the last and the most complicated scenario, we have variable number of approval requests. Imagine a list of product purchase is created and requires some certain level of approval. The grocery items should be approved by one manager, while stationery items should be approved by another manager, and finally, electronic items should be approved by a different manager. So as you can see, depending on what comes into this purchase list, different people, different approval requests should be created. So basically, we really don't know how many people are going to review and approve it, and that is decided at runtime when the workflow is executed based on the content that comes here. If you just look at all these scenarios, they all can be done very easily because it's only a matter of navigate through one item to another item and send approval requests to different people. But here is the question. In best practice, we don't want any approver wait for another approver to get his or her own item to review. Is that clear? So the first one, if I have one item that 3 people should approve it, we don't want one approver wait for the other approver to vote and then he gets his or her chance to review. In the second one, if there are 2 items, for example, for phone and a software license, we don't want the manager who is reviewing, for example, the software license, wait till the first manager approves or rejects the phone, then he or she gets the item to review. That's going to delay the process dramatically. And also keep it in mind that these 2 requests are totally independent, so one is not going to affect the other. Third one becomes even more important because in the third one, when you have 10 items in that purchase request, if every single manager should wait for the other one, imagine how long it takes for the entire request to be processed and the final list to be compiled. Things get worse if one of them is, for example, on vacation and all of a sudden nobody else will receive even the initial review until this guy comes back from the vacation. Now, when it comes to Power Automate provides different sets of actions for each one of them. For the first 2, that you have one approval request or we have fixed number of approval requests, the start and wait for an approval will do the trick. So we really don't have a complex scenario, and I will show you in this video how we can handle that. In the third scenario, we have variable number of approval requests, so we really don't know before the workflow actually starts. This is going to be the subject of the next video that is coming 1 week later after I release this video. Stay tuned because this one has quite a bit of complexities into it. So let's start with the first scenario, which is going to be an employee is hired. The question is that can he or she get a corporate cell phone? We want to code it into a Power Automate flow. Just like before, we go to flow.microsoft.com. I want to create a new Power Automate flow. So I click on create and I click on instant flow just to keep it simple. Manually trigger a flow. I would say approval 01, assuming that is the first scenario that we want to go through it. Then I click on create and the flow is created. Now I want to create a new step, which is going to be start and wait for an approval. So if I click on the start and wait for an approval, first thing that I need to decide on is going to be the approval type. This approval type can be approve reject, that everyone must approve. So that's a case that it's a collective vote that 4 or 5 people should vote on it, and final response is going to be approved if all of them approve. The second one is going to be first to respond. Is a good idea when you want to have more than one person reviewing and approving something. In case one of them is not available, someone else can claim the approval process and move with it. So let me pick one of them. For example, approve, reject, first to respond. The first thing that you need to take care of is the title. Title is extremely important, and I'm getting to it in a minute. Title is going to be the subject of the email that the approver receives. So before I get there, I go to the manually trigger flow and I enter a text and I call it employee name. And when I get the employee name, I want to send the employee name to the manager or the approver of this item for the cell phone. Remember, we were looking for corporate cell phone. So title is going to be cell phone for, and I need to get the employee name from here. So I go through the trigger and I pick the employee name and I put it here. Assign to, I can assign it to multiple people, and I just need to separate the emails by semicolon. I just put myself here at the moment. I just want to have one approver. Of course, if you have more approvers, this one sends the request to all of them at the same time, and they all respond. After all the answers are received, this one will move on to the next step. So we are good with this one. Details, I would say employee name. Let me pick the employee name from here. Is hired. Please approve corporate cell phone for him or her. If there is a link item, you can put a link. If there is a link, item link description, you may want to add there. At the moment, I don't need any one of them. Show advanced option becomes a little bit important. So if I come here, I can say enable notifications, which the approver receives the request by email, not just through the app, and enable reassignment. I would say no. If I set it to yes, basically the approver has the opportunity to forward the approval request to another employee, to another manager, to another approver to vote on it. At the moment, it's all good. We don't want to make it any more complicated. And I go to new step. I search for send email. So let's go with send an email v2. I want to send the title to the one who has actually requested that. So I click on this too. I click on dynamic content and I send it to the user email. So basically the person who pushed this button should get notified whether this request is approved or rejected. So I would say request for cell phone, and I get the outcome from this guy, from the wait for an approval. So if I click on this, I can say give me the outcome. So it's going to be approve or reject. Body is going to be the request for, I need to get the employee name. Cell phone is outcome. So I click on outcome and it simply says it's approved or rejected. I click on save. Let me just test it and see if it works. I'm going to give it a shot. Continue. I put the employee name as like James and I click on run flow. Done. As you can see, it should start and wait for the approval so it doesn't go any further. Let me just open the Outlook. Now here is the email that we got. Let me just approve it. I would say looks good. I did not include a comment in the email. Regardless, I click on submit and it says it's approved. And here is the email that I received. So basically the request for James' cell phone is approved. I forgot the D and the end apparently. It doesn't matter. So basically what we did, we could create one specific approval request for one or multiple approvers. And multiple approvers is just a matter of adding the emails that we are sending the request to. That was the easiest one. The next one is going to be you have fixed number of approval requests for multiple approvers. And in that case, let's change the previous scenario a little bit and make it like this. An employee is hired. Can he or she get a corporate cell phone, which we already have it? The second one is going to be, can he or she get Photoshop license? In that case, if I go back to my workflow and I click on edit here, I already have the approval for the corporate cell phone. I just need to add another action here, which is going to be the approval for the Photoshop. So let me add another action here. I would say start and wait for approval. I just add this guy here and I continue exactly the same way. So let's go first to respond for this one. And the title is going to be new Photoshop license for new hire. Assign to, again, I assign it to myself. Details, a new employee, and I put employee name here, is joining us. Please approve Photoshop license for him or her. I don't want to add a link item or anything else. Let me show the advanced options. Again, I don't need anything else here. I just don't want this guy to reassign it to anyone else. So I just click on save. Now, here's the problem. So let me just rename them so we can actually see them properly. Let me click on this drop down and I say request Photoshop, save, and this one is gonna be, let me just rename it, request for company phone. Again, we save it. Now here is the thing. If I run this at this stage, the request for Photoshop should wait till the first one is completed, processed, it's approved or rejected, and then the second request goes to the approver. This is not what we want. But with something like this, we can get away with this start and wait for an approval. Trick is very simple. Just click on the plus here right before anything else and add a parallel branch. So here, I just added dummy control. It doesn't matter what it is, and I just put an input here, just so that I can save it. Now I need to bring this request for Photoshop to the other branch. Let me just drag and drop it here, and I put it right here. So I don't need this compose here anymore. The only thing is that this email should be sent after both of them are processed, which is again very simple. Let me just add another step here. Whatever the control that you want to add, just add it here. It doesn't matter. I would say, for example, another compose. It really doesn't matter. Just don't add anything that requires a connection. And then I drag and drop this email and put it right before that. Now I don't need this compose anymore. See what we have now. I have manually trigger a flow in parallel. It sends one request for company phone, another request for Photoshop, and after both of them are done, it sends the email. So if I click on this email now, I would say the request for employee whatever cell phone is approved or rejected. Right after that, I would say the request for his or her Photoshop license is, again, the outcome, but this time the outcome is going to come from request for Photoshop. So let me just scroll down, request for Photoshop, and I need to get the outcome. There we go. Let me just make sure this is correct now. Request for company phone. The first one is the phone. The second one is the Photoshop. And then we test it. So I click on test, and this time I would say Sarah, and I click on run flow. Done. And now this request goes to both these two guys in parallel. Of course, they both come to me, but the main point is that one request does not need for another request. You can extend it to as many requests as you want, but here is the thing. You have to know exactly how many requests that you have. So you add one branch for every request. In that case, everything is processed in parallel and one request does not wait for another one. So let me go back to my mailbox, or even I can go to my homepage and you can see the approval requests here. So you can see there is one new Photoshop license for the new hire and another one is cell phone for Sarah. So let me click on this one. So you see the title is there, requester is there, and all those things. I may decide to approve the Photoshop license, so I just confirm it. Done. The other one is cell phone request, and this time I can reject this one, and I would say no. I click on confirm, and we're good to go. Done. Let me go back to the flow itself. Approval 01 that we just created. It's completed. We can see the run history. So as you can see, it is executed in parallel. And here is the email. So the request for Sarah's cell phone is reject. The request for his or her Photoshop license is approve. So basically that's the outcome. It can be approve or reject. So far we are done with one approval request for one or multiple approvers, fixed number of approval requests for multiple approvers, and the third one, you gotta wait for it till the next video. All right, that was it for the first video. Now stay tuned till the next video that we cover a lot more complicated scenarios with the approval workflows. Thank you for watching. Don't forget that like button right there. Stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next video.